What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the UFC 275 four-card breakdown show with yours truly, Cage. As always, I'm joined with my co-host, Jim. How you doing today, Jim?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm ready to do the predictions for this awesome pay-per-view that's going to be going on in Singapore
Yeah,
this Saturday, June 11th at 6:30 p.m. What are your thoughts on this fight card when it was first announced?
I think it's stacked. I love every fight. You get some people making their debut, but the last three fights are what people are paying to see, right? You got the Joanna and Weili Zhang fight, Shevchenko and Santos, Teixeira Prohaska. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be three back-to-back bangers.
Yeah, we got two title fights on tilt, and then the third fight that you were talking about is a rematch from a couple years ago. We got the return of Joanna to any of that, of course. This podcast is Cage My IQ, the best place for MMA content. All we guys ask for you guys to do is to follow and subscribe to us on social media. As you see right there, we are on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. More importantly, go on to YouTube if you haven't done so already. With us recording right now, please smash the subscribe button and the notification bell so you guys are the first to see whenever we put content out. And then, of course, smash the like button down below and hit us up in the comment section to the right and give us your thoughts and opinions on this fight card coming up, and then who you think's gonna win, and then just give us what you think of our predictions for this Saturday. And then, of course, we are sponsored by High Tide Herbal. Uh, if you don't know who our sponsor is, check out this video right now.
Offering high quality, sustainable products with all natural, lab tested ingredients, it's High Tide Herbal's mission to help others live the longest, healthiest, and most productive lives possible. Their hemp derived CBD products have a wide variety of uses, from helping sore muscles to skin hydration and minimizing skin irritation. They generate results based on your specific needs. Elevate your lifestyle with the new wave of wellness. Visit hightideherbal.com to learn more.
Once again, that's High Tide Herbal. We're running a promo right now. All you got to do is go to www.hightideherbal.com. Go to checkout, put in the promo code down below, CageMyIQ10, to receive 10% off your next purchase. Let's get into the nitty gritty now. We're going to do the 12 fight four card breakdown. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you guys a couple of my uh, betting tips for you for this pay-per-view fight card. I'll give you guys two solo picks and then a parlay before we get headed out. But let's get started with the 12 fight predictions. The first fight that we have for you is a fight that got put together a couple weeks ago. We got a welterweight matchup between Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews against Andre Fiallo. As you know, Fiallo fought a couple weeks ago on the pay per view, got that first round win, and asked for an immediate fight on this card. He got granted it. So it's Jake Matthews versus Andre Fiallo. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is a good fight. I like seeing fighters staying active, and Andre Fiallo looked very undamaged in his last fight. I have Andre Fiallo winning this fight. Lately, Matthews has been a decision fighter who has really good submission skills, but he's just more as of late fought to decisions. But Fiallo has been a freight train. He'll be the aggressor in this fight. He'll have the better hands, which is going to result in a second round knockout.
And yeah, and don't underestimate Jake Matthews' hands, because even though he's a BJJ black belt, he focuses on the grapple and getting the fight to the ground, and then he has really good submission entries. His hands has been vastly improving ever since he joined the UFC. He has nice
Yep.
overhand shots. He hits for power, and he usually uses the hands to set up his takedowns, and he's been able to win a lot of fights. A lot of people don't realize how long he's been in the UFC, because sometimes his fights are back to back, or like a long time away, like a year and a half between fights. But he's been in the UFC for 6-7 years, and he's prided himself on winning. And when he gets to the ground and then submitting his opponents, he doesn't have any knockouts, but he tends to stun guys, take them down, and then, like I said, he gets the tap out. But in this one, I think Andre Fiallo and his boxing and striking are going to be on full display again. I think he has a lot of fast movement. He has that knockout power. He does all those crazy kicks and backhands. I think he gets it done the first round again. I think he continues the streak of first round knockouts. And like I said last time, ever since he lost that fight to Mika Ferrer, he's looked like a beast in the octagon and knocking
Yeah.
guys out. I think he learned from that fight, and he doesn't want the decisions to go to the judges, so he takes matters into his own hands and he gets the knockout.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Matthews has been in the UFC since 2014,
Yeah.
and his last two losses have been submissions. And I don't think Fiallo is going to go on the ground with him and try to outgrapple Matthews. So the knockout was where I was going. I don't see this going all three rounds.
I will say that the longer the fight goes, I think it might go Matthews' way, and so it would be in Fiallo's best interest to get him out early,
I agree.
because Matthews does have the better cardio than Fiallo.
Yeah, that we've seen so far, right? We
Yeah.
really haven't seen Fiallo go into deep water. So this could be a very, very interesting fight and a really good litmus test for both of these fighters.
Yep. But let's move on to the second fight on the pay per view. We have a men's bantamweight matchup between Hung Ho Kang versus DanielBakley. We got Mr. Perfect going up against Storm. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is another good fight. I have Dana winning this fight. Like the previous fight, I think he'll be the more aggressive fighter and poses a bigger threat on the feet. Kang is a very good grappler, but is a very low volume striker who relies on his takedowns. And when the takedowns kind of aren't there, he just puts together like, I don't want to say sloppy, but they aren't crisp combos. So with that, I think Dana's going to take advantage of the lack of volume, and he's going to get the decision win.
This is one of the fights on this card that I'm really looking forward to. Of course, you said it yourself. Dana has that kickboxing background. He likes to use those overhand right. The right is his bread and butter. The big time shot. He mixes in leg kicks in from a distance, but he likes to close the distance, come in there and attack you and get the knockout. But at times he's been prone to being taken down, especially in one of his debuts. He was taken down several times against Ao Tang Haley. I think he was taken down once or twice, and it kind of forced him to not be able to get going. But when he gets going, like in one of his last fights against Guido Canetti, he gets hot. He just keeps on throwing, pushes forward. It allows you to hit him so he can hit you back, and he usually uh, gets the knockout. But against a guy like Kang, who has that high level BJJ background, he has a little bit of kickboxing, so he throws a little bit of leg kicks, and a lot of his striking is done from a distance. And he uses it for his wrestling background. He likes to get inside, take you down, and do a lot of work on the ground. I got Kang here by third round submission by rear naked choke. One of the things he likes to do is he transitions to the back of the ground, and his go to submission is the rear naked choke. And we've seen that if background can't get the striking going, because he's more of a striker on the feet. If he can't get that going, then he's kind of like a sitting duck, because he's not very well on the ground, and it's hard for him to defend. And I think with the vast background, as long as he can avoid that right overhand shot from back row, I feel like Kang can take him down several times, control him on the mat, do a little bit of ground and pound, kind of tease him, let him get up a little bit just to take his back and to get the sub. So I got Young Ho Kang by third round. Rear naked choke.
Yeah, just to further your argument, and it's not going to change my pick on this, you made mention of Kang using distance
Yeah.
to kind of set up his wrestling. He's got the 3-inch reach advantage in this, so this is something to look out for here. It may be the precursor to several takedowns.
Yeah, and this is even though this is Kang's second fight back, he didn't fight for a couple of years before the Ronnie Yaha fight. He didn't have to worry about the strike in there, even though he lost the fight. It was a grappling matchup,
Right.
and I felt like he looked better coming back. It's just that he went against a guy that could grapple and was a world class BJJ artist compared to him. Kang's big component with this game is the wrestling, and everything's there to kind of predicate on getting to that point. So I feel like he comes in, he has a great game plan to avoid that right hand shot, and he pulls off the upset.
All right.
Let's move on to the next matchup on the prelims. We got a men's featherweight matchup between Sung Woo Choi going up against Joshua Kulabal. We got Sting versus Koya. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight when I saw this matchup. I'm going to go with Troy in this one. He's going up against another low volume striker, but needs to be careful of the power that Kubala possesses. I believe the Troy's volume paired with his takedowns will be the difference maker. So, with that being said, I'm going with Sting, Sung Woo Choi, with the decision win.
This was very tough for me, this matchup, because a lot of people say a lot about Joshua Kulabal because of his loss to Jalen Turner, but they fair to remember that he, in his debut, he moved up uh, a weight class to fight Jalen Turner, who is
Right.
a lot bigger guy than him with a vastly bigger reach. And he just got pieced up by that reach difference. And then he moved back down, and he had a great fight against his next opponent, as we know, Charles Jourdain, and they fought to a tie. Even though I felt like Coolabau won that, uh, and then he got the win right afterwards. So it's like when he doesn't have to deal with the reach difference, he looks like a good fighter. He has that BJJ background, of course. He comes in with Taekwondo. That's his bread and butter in there. He likes to fight. He uses a lot of different leg kicks. He likes to clinch up. He tends to get a couple takedowns from the BJJ realm. He knows how to get the fight to the ground. He has good ground and pound, and he's really good at getting the setup to the sub. Whereas Sung Woo Choi has a Muay Thai and boxing background, where he has his quick hands. We saw that in the past couple fights. His hands are really quick. He knocked out Jordan Rosa with those quick left rights and just stunned him because Orosa wasn't able to get the reach going because he just kept on getting hit. Then he came in, had a quick start in his last fight, but inadvertent, I believe it was eye poke, I believe it was, uh, against Casares, kind of killed his momentum when he stunned
Yeah.
him. They restarted the fight, and then Casares was able to pick up the finish there in that fight. But he was looking really good with the hands there. But I think one thing that we have to remember is in his debut, Sung Woo Choi had a difficult time dealing with the takedowns. He got
Yeah.
taken down 4 to 5 times, and he just like in the one of the fights before this, he's a guy that needs the fight to be on the feet to win. And a lot can be said about Kulabao, but this guy can fight on the feet and he can fight on the ground. And I feel like he's going to take down Sung Woo Choi 2 to 3 times. He's going to use that to get the fight to the ground. And I could see Joshua Kulabao stealing this one with the unanimous decision victory with the combination of the leg kicks on the feet, the transitions to the takedown, and a little bit of ground and pound.
All right, so we're on same outcome, different victor.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good matchup, and I know you said that the reach is something that Coolbow's kind of struggled with. It's only 1.5 inch in this one, so it's not like a Jalen Turner coming in there with like a 7 inch reach advantage.
Yeah, definitely so. And one thing we have to remember is it's been a little while since Kulabao has fought.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he doesn't come in too rusty. But I feel like this is a good matchup for him because he's only going to have to worry about the striking with Sung Woo Choi. And he, I believe, has the bigger reach in this matchup.
Choi's 74.5 in this
Yeah,
one.
that's what I'm
Oh,
saying. It's not
sorry.
it's not too big of a difference.
Yeah, you said he hasn't fought in a while. That's like the overarching theme of this
Yeah,
card. Like Joanna hasn't fought in 2 years. There's a lot of fighters on here who haven't been able to fight, and that could be due to restrictions on their respective countries allowing people in and out. But
yeah,
that could be a lot of ring rust in this card.
yep. But let's transition to the next fight on the card. We have a men's lightweight matchup between Haiser Mahasate versus Steve Garcia. Mahasate has no nickname, and then we got Steve Mean Machine Garcia. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this was another interesting matchup. I'm going to go with Garcia in this one, based off of his experience and versatility. The only thing that concerns me with Garcia is his tendency to drop his hands at time. And
Yeah,
Majate hasn't lost in 2 years, and has knockout power, which is something to keep in mind with this fight. I have Garcia getting in um, with the takedown, taking the fight to the ground, and winning by second round ground and pound.
yeah. Haiser Mahasate, he's coming in here very young. I believe he's 21, 22.
Yep.
He got that come from behind victory on the Contender Series where Dana White loved the resilience. He lost the first round, came in, and then won the second and third. He even said he's always the slow starter that starts to heat up once the fight gets going. He has nice hands. He has nice movement. He has a good cardio. He likes to be the aggressor once he kicks out of that slow start, and he tends to pour out a good amount of volume. And then you got Steve Garcia, who has knockout power. He has powerful hands. He comes at you, but then he has a good takedowns. He averages a few takedowns each fight. But the one thing that's always going to be his Achilles heel is his gas tank. He always starts out full throttle. First and second round are pretty good, but then by the third round, he always looks tired because of a lot of the production that he does, and that's why he tries to get that first round knockout or finish in the first couple rounds. And so that's going to be something to look at when both these guys are the opposite. You see Masate, who is at his best later, whereas Garcia is at best in the beginning. So it's
Yep.
like it's going to be the matter of can Garcia get the knockout or can Masate keep himself from getting finished early when he's a slow starter, and then he can ramp it up and then get the finish or win the fight as the fight goes on. But I got Garcia here. I think he's the savvy veteran here, going up against a kid who has no experience in the UFC. He's 21. He has a lot to learn. I think Garcia wins it by unanimous decision in this fight. I think he floats with the chance of getting the first round knockout. He doesn't get it, and then he wins the first 2 rounds, avoids being knocked down in the third when he starts to tire out, and Masate ramps it up, and he skates out of this with a decision victory.
Yeah, I was worried about the gas tank, which is
Yeah,
why I went with the second round. I think we're right on the same page here with Garcia. I think where we're at is he's going to capitalize on that slow start and then pepper in enough volume to already have the judges, opinion or vote by the third round.
yeah, definitely so. But like, I am kind of worried that Masate could catch him,
Oh
uh,
yeah, for sure.
and avoid the shots, and then get the victory here because I can only assume Masate is going to come in as a slight underdog. So the longer the fight goes, the better it is for him. But it's like, you gotta remember that Garcia should be able to win the first round,
Yeah,
because of the slow start. So it gives him that leg up to where all he needs to do after that is win the second. So as long as he can do what he always does with the fast start, I still feel like he can get the decision over here.
yeah,
But I wouldn't be surprised if it winds up being a split decision.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised either if he doesn't get the knockout. You can't
Yeah.
afford to have a slow start in the UFC. That may have worked on the regionals, but you can't afford that once you get to the big leagues.
Yep. So let's move on to the next fight on the card. We have a women's bantamweight matchup between Jocelyn Edwards going up against Ramona Pascal. Ramona is making the move back down to bantamweight. She had fought her debut against Jocelyn Nunez at featherweight. So it'll be interesting to see how she looks at 135. But you got La Pantera going up against Ramona. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I love that it's La Pantera versus Ramona. Like that was the
Yeah.
the highlight. This was a tough one to pick. Edwards has the experience and the reach advantage, but struggles with takedowns in her last few fights. Pasquale landed 3 takedowns in her last fight, but didn't do much damage while on the mat. And she was pieced up her last fight. If you look at the statistics, she absorbed a lot of damage. I'm leaning towards Edwards in this one. I feel she's going to use her reach advantage to work from range and get the decision win, avoid the mat, and just kind of work from distance. This is going to be, in my thoughts, a low volume striking matchup.
Yeah, what's crazy about this is Justin Edwards is really good with striking. She has that boxing background.
Yeah,
She just puts in low volume with it at times because she likes to fight from a distance. She goes in and out, and then whenever she feels uncomfortable or she's getting attacked, she would drop guard or clinch up, and then she's okay with getting taken down because of her BJJ background. She has really good transitions off of her back against Yanin Wu. She did very well with putting on the arm bar or the triangle, even though she didn't get the sub, even though she got technically outstruck in that fight. The submission attempts and the dropping down and grappling helped her win that fight because of being on the ground. But the one thing that we have to worry about with her is the fact that she gets taken down very easily,
yeah,
especially since at times she's fine getting taken down. It's like she's okay going on the mat, and it kind of works against her. But she's going up against somebody with a Muay Jiu-Jitsu background and Pascal, who is really good on the feet. She has great movement. She has good hands. You even said it like she got beat up against Nunez, but she took all the damage. She didn't get knocked out. She has
right.
a really good chin, and she kept on fighting. And she looked really strong late in that fight when Nunez started to get tired. She was pressing Nunez and throwing back at her, and she's not prone to getting the fight to the ground as well either. Like she's been able to take people down from time to time, but her bread and butter is striking on the feet. She likes the Muay Thai clinch, throw the knees and elbows in the clinch, push the fight against the cage and use her height and her weight difference against her opponents. She's coming in here 10 pounds heavier, even though Edwards has the reach advantage.
Yeah.
She's coming in with the weight difference, and that's just her come down to 135. We don't know how she looks after she weighs in. She
Yeah.
might be 20 pounds heavier, and that's going to be an advantage there to where I feel like she's not going to be taken down or get into the mat with Edwards. So I think the fight's going to be a stand up fight. And because of that, I got Ramona Pasquale by decision. I feel like she's the better striker. She puts out more volume and she can take damage, whereas Edwards can't take damage to the level of Ramona does. And I do feel like maybe Ramona takes her down once or twice, but avoids any of the submission attempts. So I got Ramona winning this one, 2 rounds to run. I think she gets round 1 and 3.
All right. Well, we'll have to see. Was this one of the tougher ones for you, just based on like the opponents?
It was tough because of the two opponents, because this is only going to be Ramona's second fight in the UFC, and then the Nunez one, she took the fight on short notice. So
Yeah.
I feel like I can only imagine how she's going to look with a full fight camp compared to only taking a fight on a week's notice. And she looked well towards the end in that fight. And I do like her cardio because she didn't slow down at all.
Yeah, and she trains with JoJo Wood and Roxanne Modafferi, who
Yeah.
both have really good cardio as well and ground games. So, I mean, there's a reason why she's been taking people down more. She's probably been sharpening that iron.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like she should come in on the plus underdog value. So that's one of those things that I might look into going with when I go to make a few bets. Is put a little on Pascal.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be a bad bet.
Nope. But let's move on to the next fight on the prelims. We got a men's middleweight matchup between Brendan All In Allen, who's going up against Jacob Mamba Malkoon. Jim, what are your thoughts on this matchup? And who do you have winning?
I love this matchup. I think this is a really good matchup. Malkoon has been improving his game each fight and has been showing he's um, a boxer with a good gas tank. I think that's something that we kind of have looked at recently when we've been talking about Malkoon, and if he could kind of piece it together, then he could be very dangerous in this division. While you have Allen, who is a fighter who finds holes in your games and exploits them, mainly being on the ground. We saw that in his fight with Sam Alvey when he went up in weight, and at times Alvey looked pretty good in that fight, but eventually Brendan Allen kind of took advantage of Sam Alvey's weaknesses, took him to the ground, and submitted him. I'd be surprised to see if Allen stands and trades with Malkoon because it'll end bad for him. Malkoon's got those hands, he's got power, and he knows how to use combinations. Underrated wrestling game too, training with Robert Whitaker over there in Australia. But I see him, Brendan Allen, that is, taking the fight to the ground and getting a second round submission over Jacob Malkoon.
This is probably my one of my most anticipated fights on the card because you just said it right there. The boxing, both these guys have boxing backgrounds, but Brendan Allen doesn't showcase his as much because he's really strong in the BJJ and the wrestling.
Yeah.
Pretty, he likes to get the fight to the ground. He's good with his hands, but he's never really knocked anybody out, and he uses the strike and the setup, the takedowns and the grappling. We've seen him in the past with losing fights when it's a stand up game striking. Just look at the Carl Robeson fight; he was losing that, but then once he got the fight to the ground, that's when he looked his best and he was able to get the submission victory. But against a guy like Malkoon, who has a heavy boxing background, and you even said it right there, he trains with Robert Whitaker. They kind of work well together as training partners. He helps out Whitaker with his with his striking and his boxing, and then Whitaker helps him out with the grappling and the
Yeah.
wrestling. We've seen the diverse background in the past couple of fights with Malkoun because he came in, tried to strike with Phil Hawes, and he got knocked out in the first minute, a minute or two. Whereas in the last two fights, he went a wrestling happy game plan, and he was able to basically just out hustle, out
Outlast.
control and outlast Al Razak Al Hassan, and in that fight. And then he also came in last fight and did the same thing in his last fight to AJ Dobson, who a lot of people coming on his debut were very high on. He's had a lot of control time on the mat. He predicates on control position over action because he's still learning the ins and outs of transitioning, but he has that weight and he knows how to force his opponent down and keep him down. And that's why I'm leaning towards Jacob Malkoun by decision here. I feel like he's going to be able to take down Brandon Allen several times, uh, but he's not going to. It's not going to be his heavy game. I think he's going to start out striking because he's going to have that advantage here. He's not going to be afraid of getting knocked out. He's going to move around, throw the jab, throw the overhand shot, just get the fight going, get the volume up, and then he's going to, instead of shooting a lot, he's going to pick and choose his entries and his takedowns because he knows Brendan Allen has a background in grappling as well. Uh, but I think he's going to get the decision victory based on volume, and then maybe get two takedowns to go with it, like in the second and third round. I think this is a fight where a lot of people expect the fight to be on the ground a lot, but it might be standing the majority of the fight.
Oh, if it stands, and Allen's probably going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Malkoun
And
throws bombs.
yeah, he throws bombs, and he, like, if he can keep on progressing the way he does, it's going to be a tough out for anybody who
I
doesn't have
agree.
knockout power. Because if he can uh, strike with you and then now take you down, that's a lethal combination.
Yeah. Do you think we see Robert Whitaker at this in his corner? I know he was meant to be on this fight, but had to pull out. Do you think he corners Malkoun in this one?
I think he does. The only time that they don't corner each other is when they
They fight
they
on the
both,
same card.
which has been basically almost every fight card
Yep.
since Malkoun has been in the UFC. So
Yeah.
I can only assume he's going to be, but if he isn't, then you definitely know that he's trying to not go far because of injury.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, think about if that.
But let's move on to the next fight on the card. We got a women's strawweight matchup between Silvana Gomez Yares going up against Na Lian or Lian Na, with how they pronounce it. You got La Melvada versus the Dragon Girl. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and then who do you have winning?
Have Liang winning this one. She's got the reach advantage, the power advantage, and is really good on the ground. Juarez's last two fights were against were submission losses, while Liang's last two wins were submission wins. And the common component of all four of those fights were arm bars. Um, so there's a trend there between the two fighters. Juarez struggles against the arm bars, and Liang seems to go there. So I have Liang getting it to the ground early in the first and getting a first round sub via armbar.
Yeah, she has pretty decent hands, but she loves to get the fight to the ground. One of the knocks with her with that though is the fact that she, kind of like Curtis Blades, she would telegraph her entries from far away, and then even if she doesn't get it, she would go down and kind of grab your leg and just hold on to your leg and kind of hope that she can pull you down, and it leaves her open for shots to the face, which you saw that a couple of times against Arlene Carnelasi. She was able to uh, damage Na Ling in that fight doing that. but she's very good at getting the fight to the ground. She wins a lot of her fights, like you said, by submission. She's with her long length and high level background in BJJ. Whereas on the other side, you got Silvana Gomez, who's a really good striker. She likes to fight from a distance. Uh, the one thing I don't like about her is, even though she puts in a lot of volume, is the fact that she tends to fight kind of passive. She lets her opponent dictate the center of the octagon, and then she kind of moves backwards a lot and throws moving back. But she has a lot of power with that, with her hands, and she throws nice calf kicks. Or, like I said before, she can stun her opponents. High volume. That's what makes this fight very interesting. It is the fight going to go standing, or is the fight going to go to the ground? But you hit the most important factor in this fight, is the fact that Silvana Gomez Juarez lost two of her fights by armbar. So that's been something she's kind of put herself into a bad situation. And Na Liang has that great submission entry with her grappling, where she's won several times by armbar. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go second round submission via armbar. I think she gets the submission victory, and Silvana makes the same mistakes that she does in a couple of our fights in the past.
Yeah, and Silvana's not going to be able to work from distance in this one. She's a smaller fighter. She's down 4.5 inches in terms of reach advantage to Liang. So the game plan is going to be a little flustered there. She's going to have to get in there, and like you said early, Liang has some underrated hands. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
And the crazy thing is, I think this is Liang's only path to victory is submission. I feel like anything else, if the fight goes the distance, I have Silvana winning by just because of the
Pure
volume
volume. Yeah,
game. Yeah,
yeah,
but I think she makes a mistake and she gets subbed for it.
I agree.
Let's move on to the main card of UFC 275. The first matchup we have is a welterweight matchup between Jack Della Maddalena going up against Ramazan Ameev. We got the newcomer Jack going up against Ramazan Goritz Ameev. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and then who do you have winning?
So this is another one of those striker versus grappler fights.
Yes.
Madalena is a high striker with good hands. He's on an 11 fight win streak. And he also has a pretty underrated submission game, while Amiv is a low volume striker who grinds out wins on the ground. Um, I don't I don't want to say that this is going to be an easy win for Madalena, because there are no easy wins, but I have him winning this fight by decision. I think he's going to be able to stuff the takedown attempts of Amiv, which is going to result in the fight staying on the feet, where Madalena is going to thrive. So Jack Della Madalena by decision.
Yeah, this is going to be a very good fight to watch, because he got the striker against like you said, the sambo grappling artist. He also with the sambo, he also does freestyle wrestling. So
Yep.
a lot of his fight is predicated on getting the fight to the ground, in which he in two of his fights he's had, I believe, 5 takedowns and then 8 takedowns. So
Yeah.
he gets the fight a lot to the ground, but his opponents tend to are able to get up, but then he slams them back down. And you said low volume. That's mainly just because he does a lot of ground and pound and work on the ground, that the fight doesn't stay to the feet that often in his fights. But I think he's going to have a tough time getting the fight to the ground, because Jax Del Madalena has really good striking. I think he has one of the best jabs in the UFC. He always follows that up with the overhand shot. Whenever Amir's gonna shoot in, I feel like Jack's gonna throw that jab and kind of meet him in the middle, and and then he's gonna stop him at his tracks. And the fight's gonna be taking place a lot on the feet because of it. And I think he has good movement. He has good speed. is pretty decent cardio. Uh, as long as the fight stands on the feet, you have to go Jack. If the fight goes to the ground at all, then you're gonna feel good with me. But I got Jack Della Maddalena winning by first round knockout. I believe he gets the jab going. He bangs up Ameev. He stuns him later in the round, and then he finishes him with the overhand right, and then the judge steps in. So I got Jack Della Maddalena winning by first round knockout.
All right. Ameev is one of those fighters that has the last two of his fights are both splits against Danny Roberts and David
Yeah,
Sawada. And even in both those fights, he's landed more takedowns. Danny Roberts was just able to get him in a triangle, and then, or no, I'm sorry, they were splits, but he wasn't able to do much. So the last two fights trending is that he gets the fight to the ground and just doesn't do anything.
yeah.
So I'm curious to see where they go because he can strike from like 12 strikes landed in a fight to 50. That's the range for Embiid in his UFC career. So I'm very curious to see how this fight plays out.
Yeah, and then another thing is Jack Della Maddalena. I believe 95% of his fights ended in a knockout.
Yeah,
He finishes all of his opponents. So as long as he gets the jab going, I feel like it's going to be the same thing in this fight, even with the threat of the takedowns, because he's
yeah,
going to have the hands that can. The jab is always a weapon that it can equalize a takedown attempt because you meet him in the middle, like I said, and you kind of stun him, and when you throw it enough, it becomes a lethal thing to use in a fight.
yeah. And Jack's got underrated wrestling too, so
Yeah.
it's something to look at.
But let's move on to the next fight in the main card. We have a men's flyweight matchup between Rogerio Bontorin going up against Manel Kape. We got Bontorin versus Starboy. Jim, what are your thoughts on this flyweight matchup, and who do you have winning?
I like this matchup a lot. I'm going with Manel Kape in this one. He's been on a tear lately and has been really showcasing his striking and what really got him the call up to the UFC. Bontarin has struggled against strikers lately, has become reliant on takedowns, going for 8 in his last fight. Kape has good takedown defense, and his rapid movement could keep Bontarin from landing those takedowns. So, with all those factors put together, I have Manel Kape winning by decision. I don't think this is going to be a knockout for him. I think he's going to grind out this win.
I got Manel Kape by a second round knockout here.
Nice.
Yeah, I just look back at the Kai Car France fight where Bontrain came in looking very good,
Yeah.
and Kai Car comes up and knocks him out. And I believe Kape has the better striking boxing than Kai Car France. Yeah, he comes in there, he has that power, and he's showcased the capability to finish a fight like that. You saw him and hit the flying knee on Odie Osborne to get the
Yeah.
victory. And then in one of his last fight against Zalgiz Zumagulov, he weathered the early storm where Zumagulov was able to grapple him up, get him up against the cage, and then throw those big time shots on him that stunned him a little bit. He came back there, pushed him up against the cage, and then started just throwing those shots to the face, those body shots. He was showcasing the boxing skills that he had
Yeah.
and, and the speed, and then he got the finish there. And one of the things that we've known about Bontrine is the fact that he's tend to at flyweight come in overweight to the 4 times that he's fought there.
Yeah.
He's more of like a bantamweight, and then he makes the cut down to flyweight, and he hasn't looked the same, like I said, since making the move down. But he does have good hands for that are powerful. They're more on the power side than the quick side. He's been mixing up those takedowns the past few fights. In one of his last fights, he had, I believe, 8 takedowns
Yeah.
in it. And then he had one where he had 5 takedowns. and he's added that lower calf kick to his arsenal. That if you watch that Matt Snell fight, was a big deal early on against Matt Snell. I think the power and the damage that he did to Matt Snell kind of overshadowed the volume advantage that Matt Snell had over Bontrine, and that's why Bontrine won the fight, was the fact that he did more damage. Kind of reminds you of the Kevin Vieira Holly Holm fight, where Holm had more volume, but Vieira did more damage.
Yeah.
So that could be something to watch in this fight if the fight goes longer. But I just feel like Cape has the better hands, even though he's kind of a one-dimensional striking opponent. He has knockout power. He has the speed. He has the movement, and he has good cardio. So I'm going with Cape by a second round knockout. I think it just mirrors the Kai Car France fight with Bontrain.
All right. I'm right there with you, just with the decision.
Yep. But let's move on to the next fight that we have for you on the main card. This is the rematch we've been waiting for a couple of years now. We got a women's matchup between Zhang Weili going up against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is a fight that we knew was bound to happen right after their last fight. Fight of the year, 352 strikes landed, and only one takedown on their last meeting. I'm going to go with a repeat. I'm going to go with Zhang Weili in this one. I'm worried that Joanna has been out of competition too long. It's been 2 years. Her last fight was this fight. Um, and I think it's going to allow Zhang to get one of those like early takedowns and control the fight early in the fight, obviously. And I don't see this ending in a knockout or submission, so I'm going to go Zhang Weili by decision, and it could be another split.
It could be, but the one big that the elephant in the room that we have with this fight is how is Joanna going to come in here and look? Did
Yeah,
she add anything to her game in the 2 years that she's that off? We know that she's been doing kind of like the appearances at a lot of events in the U.S. And we thought she had retired, but she has come back. But
yeah,
then again, she's done this before, where you wonder if she comes back when she had the 2 losses to Rose, and then she came back, far looked great until this, and then she goes on another kind of sabbatical, you would say. But she has that kickboxing background. She's probably one of the best at it, except for like one person on this card. She has a Muay Thai background. She's very good with the movement and the cardio. She puts in a lot of volume. But then, like you said, she's going up against Zhang Weili, who lately has been training with Henry Cejudo, like developing more so that wrestling of hers that she has. She has a wrestling background. She has the striking, and then she has that Sanda background as well that she trained earlier in her career. At the first fight, she was able to pour in a lot of damage and volume towards Joanna. Joanna did some too, but the hands of Weili were a big factor in that fight. But lately, she hasn't been able to do that in her fights. In the 2 of her last 3 fights, Zhang Weili was able to get caught several times. Of course, she got finished in the first one by that leg kick of Rose, and then in the last fight, when the fight was standing, I felt like Rose was piecing her up with the striking. It wasn't until she was able to get Rose down that she had any big time success, and then
yeah.
she was taken down too by Rose. Later in that fight, you saw that gas tank kind of whittled down a little bit, and I feel like that's something that Joanna Jędrzejczyk watched and she took notes of, because she has great cardio. She's
Yeah.
gone 5 rounds so many times, and let's not remember they almost made this fight 5 rounds.
I think
Uh,
they should have. I was hoping
yeah,
they did.
and I feel like they're going to come in here, and Joanna's coming in here very motivated. I'm going to go with her here. I'm going to go with her by decision here. I think she would get her striking going. Zhang Weili hasn't been the same, I feel like, since that leg kick to Rose. And I think she starts off slow, and Joanna gets going really quickly with those leg kicks and the knees and elbows in the clinch, and she wins the volume game because that's the only thing that won Zhang in the first fight was volume.
Yeah. I feel like I just watched you talk yourself into this decision. Um, the thing about this fight to me is that maybe this is kind of a mental thing where Zhang had too much to lose in the last fight between Rose because the title's at stake. And with this one, there's just rankings at stake. You get to this point where the whole mental aspect of it, where you don't have a title to fight for. Maybe Zhang's going to be less calculated and have a little more risk in her fight. But that's just my thought on the mental aspect of it.
You saw me so gung happy on picking Joanna that I exited out of the room. I wanted to make a
Yeah,
good exit right after talking about her.
on your way to Poland.
Yeah, on my way to Poland to lead her into battle.
Could you imagine? I'm curious. I really thought, sidetrack this for a second. I really
Yeah.
thought that we'd end up seeing like Joanna show up at like pro wrestling, like with the American Top Team, like Paige Van Zant did. When she said like, I'm retired or I'm going away. Like I thought that was going to be the next move. I'm glad to see her back because I mean she's a hell of a fighter. She's a killer.
Well, she knows how to like it's kind of like Valentina, where she knows how to use the distance and the leg kicks
Yeah,
in the hands. It's just that she doesn't have the grappling part that Valentina does, and that's why Valentina always was able to beat her. Is
yep,
that third factor in that fight because both were kind of 1-1 with the striking. It's just that grappling with Valentina, that's what makes her so much better than majority of the fighters and the top heavy pound for pound of the women's.
yeah,
It's that grappling, and then Nunez had the one factor that she had over Valentina in like edging out the victories was the power. She
yeah,
had the power, whereas Valentina, she's more about touching you up, and then over time she can beat you with damage.
yeah. Valentine is a beast.
Yeah. But let's move on to the next fight on the main card. We got the co-main event of the evening. We just talked about her.
Yeah,
We have the women's flyweight championship matchup between Valentina Shevchenko going up against the opponent Talia Santos. We got Bullet Shevchenko versus Santos. Jim, what are your thoughts on this championship co-main event, and who do you have winning?
yeah. This is a good matchup, and I feel like we both just talked about who we pick in this matchup, but I have Shevchenko winning this one. Talia has been on a roll, but has had the luxury of fighting grapple-heavy fighters as of late. She's not fighting people who are going to be willing to stand and trade with you, like a Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is a different type of fighter. We've talked about her so many times, and she poses more threats than Santos's last four opponents. So I have Valentina winning this by decision. But this is a big matchup for Valentina because Talia is a beast.
Yeah, I'm going with the same thing. I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko by decision, but I think it's going to be a close fight.
I agree.
As we said, Valentina, she does have that grappling where she knows how to take you down background, but her fight is predicated on the Muay Thai and kickboxing side of her game. She is a master at the distance game. She throws those lower calf kicks a lot of the time. She goes in, goes out. She pours in a lot of volume. She has impeccable cardio. And then the part of her game that people underestimate, and it was a great add-in to how she does things, is the fact that she has a dancing background.
Yeah,
That's how she gets that great movement. Is she trained to dance, and it allows her to do a lot of those really weird swizz and movements left and right to where she can just keep on avoiding shots from her opponents. She has a really good striking defense. She's one of the best at dodging the takedowns. When she does get taken down, that is her weakness, but she's able to avoid the takedown majority of the time. And that's something she's going to need against a fighter like Taila Santos, who has uh, Muay Thai and BJJ background, but she averages 2 to 3 takedowns a fight. She pressures her opponent forward against the cage. She uses that to get to the ground, and then she has very underrated strength when she's on top of her opponent. She can keep them down, throw the ground and pound, look for the entries to submissions. But the one part of her game that she needs to work with this is her striking. She has good striking. She's able to throw those overhand shots, but she tends to be predictable, with that at times. And I think that that's the part of the game that Valentina is going to try and exploit, is keep the fight on the feet, move around, and exploit the movement of Santos. But if Santos can get inside of her, which I feel like she can, uh, I feel like Santos can take her down several times because she has the strength to do so. I think she's a more powerful a person than Shevchenko has fought in the past. I think this is a fight that could be like 2 to 2 going into the fifth, and then that's where I think Shevchenko wins because of her cardio and the fact that she pours in a lot more volume than Santos. Santos's volume is predicated on the ground and pound.
Yeah. So we both have Shevchenko winning this one. Do you think that the matchup to make moving forward for Valentina is Grasso?
This is the tough choice here because she did make a call that depending on who wins, she would like to face the winner of Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunez. I do
Yeah,
think
I
she
mean
has.
we've talked about that forever. That
Yeah.
the Nunez rematch, but the Pena fight is interesting too.
Well, I think she knows that Pena has beat her, so that's why she made the claim that she'd be open to playing the winner of that
Yeah,
at bantamweight. It's not
yeah,
she wants them to move down and fight her. She's willing to move up, but put the weight on and go for the bantamweight title.
for
And
sure.
she does have unfinished business, losing those 2 fights to Nunez. So it's kind of like, like I need to get that revenge factor. But with the offset that maybe Pena wins the rematch against Nunez and has those 2 wins against Nunez, then it presents like a different challenge for her where she's like, oh, she won. Like, this is a person I haven't fought before. And
Yeah,
Pena has that grappling background. She does have hands
yep,
that she's shown. She has underrated hands, but she has that grappling background that she can grapple. It's kind of like uh, Charles Oliveira, but in the women's bantamweight division. She's kind of like a carbon copy where from any position she can get the submission. And Shevchenko hasn't really been challenged in that way before. And Pena's going to have the weight difference over Shevchenko.
yeah. Both of those fights I want. Like I'd like to see her move up and fight those women. But in terms of this division, I think the next one in line would be Grasso, who
Yeah.
hasn't fought Shevchenko. She's Valentina's walked through that division, so Grasso poses a big threat to her too.
Yeah, she poses a big one. I thought there was a couple of fighters that were there, like Casey O'Neill, but then Casey O'Neill got hurt, and then she's going to be out for a while. So I think it's Alexa Grasso, but she might have to wait a while to get the matchup.
Yeah, yeah. Valentina fights once a year.
Yeah, well, then not just that, but the fact that if she goes up and she fights the winner of Nunez and
Yeah,
Pena, that's going to kind of put the division on hold a little bit, which kind of
yeah,
in return kind of helps because it helps develop new challengers that she hasn't fought before.
yeah. We'll wait till Casey O'Neill comes back, and then she can fight Grasso, and then there's your
Yep,
#1 contenders match.
yep. But let's move on to the main event of the evening. We got a light heavyweight championship matchup between the champion Glover Teixeira going up against Yuri Prochaska. We got the Brazilian pit bull going up against Danissa. Jim, what are your thoughts on this big main event, and who do you have winning?
This is one of those fights where you look at it and you're like, wow, like what a mismatch, right? You got the surging prospect and the veteran. But then you look at the run that Glover's been on lately and how everybody picked Blachowicz over him and he put he stuffed him and stopped him. Um, you can't count out Glover. But I had Prohaska in this one. He's going to be more aggressive. He's going to be the more powerful fighter. The one question is the gas tank, and we've talked about this. He's only gone 3 rounds once in his career. If you look over his Tapology record, there's like 2 or 3 decisions in there, but those decisions are 2 5-minute rounds. That's it. Like that's what they were fighting. I think this makes it out of the first round, but I think Prohaska is going to win by second round knockout over Glover Teixeira.
That's the one thing with Glover Teixeira that's been kind of his weakness is he tends to get stunned in every fight because he
Yeah,
is an older fighter. He's a little slower with the striking. Everybody remembers him back in the day for his knockout power, uh, because he was able to. He was younger. He had that power. He still has that power, but
yeah,
he's kind of transitioned over time into more of a grappler. And it's been a nice watch to see how he's kind of vastly changed his game plan. Like he's gone from a knockout artist to a guy that can still stand and bang, but he more so looks for the takedown. He averages a couple of takedowns now fight, and he wins a lot now by submission now.
yeah,
That he gets the fight to the ground, transitions into a submission, and he makes his opponent tap. And that's what happened last fight. He got stunned early against Jan, but then he was able to take him down. And Jan made the big mistake at the start of the second. Jan started to get going for like a few, but then he made the mistake, got taken down again, and then he got subbed. So
yeah,
it's like you see a guy like Yuri, who is a younger guy. He is fast. He has those snapping leg kicks. He has the aggression moving forward. He has knockout power. He likes to throw the backhands, the flying knees. He does a lot in the clinch with the Muay Thai clinch. He has a lot in his game that he throws early, but just like you said, he starts to tire out after a couple rounds because he doesn't have that cardio.
yeah,
But he usually wins early anyway because he has that knockout power. It's going to be interesting to see if he can put Glover to share away early, like you think might happen, or as the fight goes on, if they get to the third, fourth, fifth round, what's going to happen to this Prochaska, and can Glover Teixeira take over in that time? Because we also haven't seen how he looks late in fights because we know he's going to have the better cardio, but he's over 40 years old,
yeah,
so it's not like he's going to have any speed going. But he does have the wrestling. I'm interested to see if he can get the wrestling going to kind of negate the striking of Prochaska, and if he can control him on the mat, because we saw Dominic Reyes take him down and with the ease. It's just that Prochaska was able to jump up, and
yeah,
he has really quick get up. So, but also Teixeira is a heavier guy. I mean, that's going to be the big factor with me is when he gets taken down, is he going to be able to get back up right away, or if Teixeira can kind of wear on him a little bit, and then when he finally gets up, he kind of loses a little bit of his gas tank. But I got 2 different scenarios I can present. I got Teixeira winning by fourth round sub via rear naked choke, or I got Yuri winning by second round knockout. I'm going to go with the second round knockout by Yuri because this is third fight in and he's dominated since he's gone in. But don't be surprised if Glover Teixeira was to win this fight because I think the grappling side of things could be a big factor in this fight, but it's hard for me to go against Yuri in this fight with what we've seen from him.
yeah. Nothing surprises me in the UFC anymore. I'm right there with you. Second round knockout, Yuri Prohaska.
Yeah, and then watch, just like I said, we picked that, so now he's gonna lose to share.
Yep, yep. 5th round sub or something crazy.
Yeah, but other than that, that is the end of the 4 card breakdown. Now I'm going to give you guys a few of my betting picks for this pay per view. The first one that I'm going to go with is Jack Della Maddalena inside the distance. This is one of my feel good picks here. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, he basically has won 95% of his fights by knockout. I feel like the same thing happens here, but I'm just going with inside the distance to cover all my tracks in case somehow it gets a crazy fluke submission or whatnot. But I think he's going to get the victory there. So it's a good way to give him better odds. I think it's going to be close to like him being a little bit of a favorite in the fight to start out, and then to kind of get it more towards plus money. I am doing him inside the distance. I'm also going with the Ramona Pasquale money line. I feel like she's going to come in as the underdog. So with that, that there's good odds there. I'm going with the money line there. I feel like a lot of people are going to be on Edwards, just like you, which I don't blame them. But I feel like it's a good option there. And then with that, I'm going to go with a parlay here. I'm going to go with Andre Fiallo. Uh, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Yuri Prokaska at the 2 spot. And then the last one I'm going to go with is Jack Della Maddalena, of course. So we got 3 people who can go with the finishes. I'm going to put them all together to kind of balance out, because I feel like here he's going to be probably like a minus 200 favorite. It's going to be, I'm going to use it in that way to kind of balance out his favorite numbers to kind of get it down to more even, because the other 2 fighters would be able to make it more even to make the odds even better. So I feel confident about those. So once again, I'm going with Jack Della Maddalena inside the distance. I'm going with Ramona Pascal, and then I'm going with the trio of Yuri Prokaska, uh, Jack Della Maddalena, and then lastly Andre Fiallo.
Nice.
Yep. But other than that, we're gonna get ready to go. I just gonna want to give another shout out to our sponsor, High Tide Herbal. Promo code CageMyIQ at 10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. And then, of course, once again, this is CageMyIQ. All we ask for you guys to do is to follow and subscribe to us on social media, and to hit us up in the comment section to the right and give us your thoughts and opinions on our predictions and this fight card in general. But other than that, we will be back next week for UFC Fight Night, which is headlined by Josh Emmett going to war with Calvin Kattar. That's going to be a banger of a main event at the UFC Apex. Actually, I think that's taking place in Austin, Texas, actually. So they're going to be moving away from the Apex and go to a live crowd, which is awesome.
Yep.
So tune in next week for that 4-card breakdown of UFC Vegas 57. But other than that, I'm your host, Cage. This is my co-host, Jim. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.